Commander Zara Vex stood tall on the bridge of her massive warship. The metal floor beneath her boots hummed with power as thousands of engines pushed the ship through space. Through the large viewing window, she could see the blue planet Earth, spinning slowly below them. Her red eyes studied the world with cold interest. This was supposed to be easy. The intelligence report said humans were weak and stupid. They had barely learned to travel between planets. Their weapons were primitive. Their ships were slow and clumsy. The Catalian Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. Just like this one, Zara's long fingers drummed against the metal railing as she watched her fleet move into position. 200 warships surrounded the small planet. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy entire cities. The humans had maybe 30 ships defending their world. It was laughable. The battle would be over in hours, maybe less. Then the real work would begin. The humans would become slaves of the Empire. Their planet would become another source of resources and workers. The communication officer turned toward Zara. His blue skin showed the stress marks that appeared when Catalians felt nervous. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet," he said in their native language. Zara nodded. "Put it on the main screen." She expected to see a terrified human leader begging for mercy. Instead, the screen showed a man in a military uniform. His brown hair was cut short in a military style. His green eyes showed no fear at all. He looked directly at Zara as if she were just another person, not a superior being from a race that ruled the galaxy. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Corps," the human said. His voice was steady and calm. "You are not welcome in our system. Leave now or face the consequences." Zara almost laughed. The consequences? This primitive creature was threatening her. She had destroyed entire civilizations. Her fleet could turn his planet into dust with a single command. "Human," she said, her voice carrying the authority of the Empire, "you have one chance to surrender. Your planet will be spared if you submit now." Jake Morrison smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a warrior who knew he was about to fight for his life. "We don't surrender," he said. "We fight." The transmission ended. Zara stared at the blank screen for a moment. Something about the human's confidence bothered her. She had seen this look before, but only in the eyes of her own greatest warriors. How could a primitive human show such courage when facing impossible odds? "All ships, begin the attack," Zara commanded. Her fleet moved forward like a wave of death. Energy weapons began to charge. Missile tubes opened. The humans would learn what it meant to defy the Catalian Empire, but something went wrong from the very beginning. The human ships did not try to run away. Instead, they charged directly at the much larger Catalian fleet. Their small ships moved in patterns that seemed random but somehow worked perfectly. They dodged the first wave of energy blasts with moves that should have been impossible for such primitive technology. Jake Morrison's ship, the Defiant, led the human attack. Zara watched in growing amazement as the small vessel danced between her battleships. It fired its weapons at weak points in the Catalian ship's armor. Each shot was perfectly aimed. The human captain seemed to know exactly where to hit to cause the most damage. "How is this possible?" Zara's tactical officer asked. His voice showed the same confusion that Zara felt. "Their ships are too slow to move like that. Their weapons are too weak to damage our armor," but the evidence was right in front of them. 3 Catalian destroyers were already badly damaged. The human ships were working together in ways that seemed impossible. They covered each other's attacks. They shared targeting information. They moved as one unit even though they were spread across thousands of miles of space. Zara focused on Jake Morrison's ship. The human captain was doing something no Catalian commander had ever done. He was fighting 3 ships at once and winning. His vessel spun and twisted through space like a dancer. Every move had a purpose. Every shot hit its target. He was not just fighting with his weapons. He was fighting with his entire ship as if it were an extension of his own body. "Target the human commander's ship," Zara ordered. "All weapons on the Defiant." 20 battleships turned their weapons toward Jake Morrison's vessel. Enough firepower to destroy a moon focused on one small ship. There was no way the human could survive, but somehow he did. The Defiant rolled and twisted through the storm of energy blasts. Most of the shots missed completely. The few that hit seemed to do less damage than they should have. Jake Morrison's voice came over the communication system again. This time he was speaking to his own ships, but somehow the Catalians could hear him too. All ships, pattern Delta 7, show them what humans can do when we fight for our home. The human fleet changed formation instantly. Their ships moved in a complex pattern that made no sense to Zara's tactical computers. But it worked. The humans were now hitting the Catalian fleet from 6 different directions at once. Their small ships were like angry insects, stinging the giant warships again and again. For the first time in her career, Zara felt something she had never experienced before: doubt. These humans were not supposed to be able to fight like this. They were supposed to be weak and afraid. Instead, they were showing courage and skill that rivaled her own people's greatest warriors. The battle continued for hours. The human ships were slowly being destroyed, but they were taking many Catalian vessels with them. Each human ship that died took at least 2 Catalian ships with it. The mathematics were simple and terrible. If this continued, both fleets would be destroyed. Jake Morrison's ship was finally hit by a direct blast from one of Zara's largest battleships. The Defiant's engines died. Its weapons stopped firing. The ship began to drift helplessly through space. Zara expected the human commander to surrender now. His ship was finished. His fleet was almost gone. Any reasonable person would give up. Instead, Jake Morrison did something that shocked everyone. Watching, he used his ship's emergency thrusters to ram one of the Catalian destroyers. The collision destroyed both ships, but the human captain had chosen to die fighting rather than give up. His last words over the radio were, "Earth will never bow to you." The battle ended with both fleets retreating. Zara's invasion force was cut in half. The human fleet was almost completely destroyed. But somehow the humans had won. They had forced the mighty Catalian Empire to retreat. A handful of primitive ships had stood against the greatest military force in the galaxy and survived. Zara stood on her bridge, staring at the empty space where Jake Morrison's ship had been. She had underestimated these humans completely. They were not weak or primitive. They were warriors who fought with a passion and skill she had never seen before. The man who had defied her empire was unlike any enemy she had ever faced. Something had changed in this battle. The intelligence reports about human weakness were wrong. These creatures were dangerous in ways that no one had expected. Zara realized that conquering Earth would not be the simple task she had planned. The humans would fight for every inch of their world. They would make the Empire pay dearly for every victory, but more than that, something had changed inside Zara. Herself, she could not stop thinking about Jake Morrison's courage, the way he had fought against impossible odds, the way he had chosen death over surrender. She had faced many brave warriors in her career, but none had impressed her the way this human had. As her damaged fleet limped away from Earth, Zara made a decision that would change everything. She would return to this system. She would face Jake Morrison again. But next time, she would be ready for the true strength of humanity. 3 months had passed since the battle over Earth. Commander Zara Vex had spent every day thinking about the human warrior who had almost destroyed her fleet. The Catalian High Command was furious about the failed invasion. They blamed Zara for underestimating the humans. They wanted answers. They wanted to know how primitive creatures had defeated the Empire's finest warships. Zara had spent those months studying everything about humans. She read their history and learned their languages. She watched recordings of their wars and battles. What she discovered made her more confused than ever. Humans were not just brave fighters, they were incredibly smart. Their technology was advancing faster than any species in the galaxy. Their cultures were complex and beautiful. These were not the simple primitives her intelligence reports had described. The most interesting discovery was about their leader, Jake Morrison. The human captain had not died in the battle as everyone believed. His escape pod had been recovered by Earth forces. He was alive but badly injured. He was being treated at a secret medical facility on Earth's moon. This information came from Catalian spies who had been watching human military movements. Zara knew she had to capture Jake Morrison. The High Command wanted him for interrogation. They believed he held the secrets to human military strength. But Zara wanted to meet him for different reasons. She could not stop thinking about his courage during the battle. She needed to understand what made him so different from other warriors she had faced. The mission to capture Jake Morrison would be dangerous. The medical facility was heavily guarded. Earth's military was expecting another attack. They had placed their best soldiers around the human commander. But Zara had advantages that the humans did not know about. She had access to Catalian stealth technology and elite commandos trained for exactly this kind of mission. Zara chose her team carefully. She picked 12 of her best soldiers. Each one was an expert in silent warfare. They could move without making sounds. They could become invisible to human sensors. They had trained for years to fight in alien environments. This mission would test all their skills. The journey to Earth's moon took 2 weeks. Zara's stealth ship moved slowly to avoid detection. Human patrols were everywhere. Their sensors were much better than expected. Several times, Zara's ship almost got caught. The humans had learned from their first battle. They were watching the skies much more carefully now. The medical facility was built inside a crater on the moon's dark side. It was designed to be hidden from Earth-based telescopes. The humans thought it was the perfect hiding place. They were wrong. Catalian sensors could detect the energy signatures from the medical equipment. Finding the facility was easy. Getting inside would be much harder. Zara and her team landed their small shuttle 5 miles from the facility. They would have to cross the moon's surface on foot. The terrain was rough and dangerous. Sharp rocks and deep craters made movement difficult. The low gravity helped them move faster, but it also made them harder to control. One mistake could send them floating into space. The facility's outer defenses were impressive. Human soldiers patrolled the perimeter in powered armor. Automated weapons scanned the area constantly. Motion sensors covered every approach. The humans had created a fortress that should have been impossible to breach. But Zara's commandos were not ordinary soldiers. They spent 6 hours slowly working their way past the defenses. Each step had to be perfectly planned. One wrong move would trigger alarms and bring hundreds of human soldiers running. The commandos used their stealth suits to become invisible. They moved like ghosts across the moon's surface. They disabled sensors and avoided patrols with skills that took decades to master. The hardest part was getting inside the facility itself. The medical complex was sealed tight. The doors were made of thick metal that could stop most weapons. The ventilation system was too small for a person to crawl through. The power systems were shielded against attack. It seemed impossible to enter without being detected, but Jake Morrison's room had one weakness. The medical equipment keeping him alive required special ventilation. The air system had to be connected to the outside to provide pure oxygen. Zara's team found the intake valve and carefully cut through it. The opening was barely large enough for one person to squeeze through, but it was enough. Zara went first. She crawled through the narrow tunnel for what felt like hours. The metal walls pressed against her from all sides. The air was stale and hard to breathe. But finally, she reached the room where Jake Morrison was being kept. She carefully removed the grate covering the ventilation opening and dropped silently into the room. Jake Morrison was lying on a medical bed surrounded by machines. His body was covered in bandages and connected to tubes that kept him alive, but his eyes were open and alert. When he saw Zara appear from the ceiling, he did not seem surprised. He had been expecting something like this. "Commander Zara Vex," he said in perfect Catalian. His pronunciation was flawless. "I wondered when you would come for me." Zara was shocked. The human spoke her language better than many of her own officers. "You learned our language in 3 months?" she asked. Jake Morrison smiled despite his injuries. I learned it during our first battle. I was listening to your communications. Your tactical discussions were very interesting. You fight like a warrior, not like a politician. This was impossible. No human should have been able to learn Catalian so quickly. Their language was complex and difficult. It took most aliens years to master it, but Jake Morrison spoke it as if he had been born to it. His accent was slight but pleasant. He used words with precision and skill. How is this possible? Zara asked. She was supposed to be capturing him, not having a conversation. But she could not help herself. This human continued to surprise her. Your people underestimate us, Jake said. His voice was weak but steady. You think we are simple because we are young. But youth has advantages. We learn fast because we must. We adapt quickly because we have to. Your empire is old and slow. We are young and fast. Before Zara could respond, alarms began to ring throughout the facility. Her commandos had been discovered. Human soldiers were running toward Jake Morrison's room. The mission was about to become a battle. Zara quickly injected Jake with a sleeping drug and threw him over her shoulder. He was heavier than she expected, but she was strong enough to carry him. The escape was a nightmare. Human soldiers filled the corridors. They were shooting at anything that moved. Zara's commandos were fighting desperately to clear a path. The humans were better fighters than expected. They used teamwork and tactics that impressed even Zara. Several of her best soldiers were killed in the running battle, but somehow they made it to their shuttle. Zara carried Jake Morrison's unconscious body while her remaining commandos provided cover fire. The shuttle lifted off just as human reinforcements arrived. They escaped, but the cost had been terrible. Half of Zara's team was dead. The humans had fought with desperate courage to protect their leader. During the flight back to her ship, Zara studied Jake Morrison's sleeping form. Even unconscious, he looked like a warrior. His face showed strength and determination. His hands were scarred from years of fighting. This was not a soft politician or a lucky amateur. This was a professional soldier who had earned his rank through skill and courage. When Jake Morrison finally woke up, he was in a cell aboard Zara's flagship. But he did not act like a prisoner. He sat calmly on the metal bench and waited for her to come to him. When she entered the cell, he greeted her politely as if she were a guest in his home. I hope the journey was comfortable, he said. Your ship is impressive. The engineering is very advanced. You are my prisoner, Zara said. You will answer my questions. Jake Morrison nodded. I will answer what I can. But I should warn you, I am not the most important person in our military. Capturing me will not give you the victory you want. Zara studied his face. He was telling the truth. But there was something else in his eyes. Intelligence that went far beyond military knowledge. This human was much more than a simple warrior. He was a scholar and a thinker. He was exactly the kind of person who could change the course of a war. We will see, Zara said. But already she knew that questioning Jake Morrison would be unlike any interrogation she had ever conducted. This human would not break easily. He would challenge her at every step, and somehow she was looking forward to it. The interrogation sessions with Jake Morrison were unlike anything Zara had ever experienced. She had questioned hundreds of prisoners during her career. Most begged for mercy or tried to lie their way to freedom. Some stayed silent and endured pain rather than speak. But Jake Morrison did something completely different. He turned every question into a discussion. He answered her inquiries with questions of his own. He made her think about things she had never considered before. Why does your empire need to conquer other worlds? Jake asked during their third meeting. He was sitting calmly in his cell, looking at her with those intelligent green eyes. What do you gain from destroying civilizations? Zara was supposed to be the one asking questions, but somehow Jake had turned the conversation around. We bring order to chaos, she said. We unite the galaxy under one rule. We end the wars between different species. By starting wars with every species you meet? Jake smiled. That seems like a strange way to create peace. The human had a point that Zara found difficult to argue against. The Catalian Empire had been at war for thousands of years. They conquered world after world, claiming to bring peace and order, but the wars never ended. There was always another planet to invade, another species to defeat. The empire grew larger, but it never became more peaceful. "You do not understand," Zara said. "The galaxy is full of dangerous species. They fight each other constantly. Only the empire can stop this violence." "Like you stopped the violence on Earth?" Jake asked. "By attacking us without warning, by trying to destroy our cities?" Again, Zara found herself without a good answer. The empire had attacked Earth first. The humans had only defended themselves. But the Empire's propaganda said that all non-Catalian species were naturally violent and had to be controlled. Jake. Morrison's calm questions were making her doubt things she had believed her entire life. As the days passed, their conversations became more personal. Jake told her about human culture and history. He explained how his species had learned to work together despite their differences. He described concepts like democracy and individual freedom that seemed strange to someone raised in an empire. But the more he talked, the more interested Zara became. "Your people choose their own leaders?" she asked one day. "How does that work? What if they choose badly?" "Sometimes they do choose badly," Jake admitted. "But bad leaders can be removed. The people have the power to change their government. No one rules forever." This idea was revolutionary to Zara. In the Catalian Empire, the ruling class was born to power. They stayed in control until they died. There was no way to remove a bad leader except through violence. The system Jake described seemed impossible, but he spoke of it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. During one of their longer conversations, Jake mentioned something that made Zara's blood run cold. He spoke casually about ancient human legends and stories. One tale involved visitors from the stars who had come to Earth long ago. These visitors had taught humans about technology and warfare. They had promised to return someday when humanity was ready to join the greater galaxy. "What did these visitors look like?" Zara asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "The stories describe them as tall with red eyes and blue skin," Jake said. "They were great warriors who fought with honor and courage." Some humans still remember their teachings about combat and strategy. Zara felt the world spinning around her. The description matched her own people perfectly. But how could humans have met Catalians thousands of years ago? There were no records of such contact in the Empire's archives. At least there were no records that she knew about. That night, Zara accessed the deepest levels of her ship's computer system. She searched through databases that few people were allowed to see. She looked for any mention of ancient contact with humans or their star system. What she found changed everything she thought she knew about her people's history. The records were old and partly damaged, but they told an incredible story. Thousands of years ago, a Catalian exploration ship had crash-landed on Earth. The crew had been stranded for decades while they repaired their vessel. During that time, they had lived among the primitive humans. They had taught them about technology and warfare. They had even married human women and had children. The record spoke of a prophecy that had been discovered during this time. It was written in an ancient language that few modern Catalians could read. But Zara had studied the old writings as part of her military education. She could understand most of it. What she read made her hands shake with excitement and fear. The prophecy spoke of a great danger that would come from beyond the galaxy. It described a dark force that would try to destroy all life in the universe. The prophecy said that when this danger appeared, the descendants of the ancient meeting between Catalians and humans would be the key to survival. 2 warriors, one from each species, would be destined to unite their people and lead the fight. Against the darkness, the prophecy was very specific about these 2 warriors. The Catalian would be a commander of great skill who had never known defeat. The human would be a captain who fought with courage that burned like a star. They would meet in battle first as enemies, then as allies, and finally as something more. Their union would either save the galaxy or watch it burn. Zara read the prophecy 3 times before she accepted what it was telling her. She was the Catalian commander it described. She had never lost a battle until she met Jake Morrison. And Jake was clearly the human captain mentioned in the ancient words. He fought with exactly the kind of courage the prophecy described, but the most shocking part was what the prophecy said about their relationship. It spoke of a bond that would grow between them, deeper than friendship or alliance. It used words that could only mean one thing. The prophecy was saying that she and Jake Morrison were destined to be married. The idea was impossible. She was a Catalian commander from a noble family. He was a human prisoner from a primitive world. Their species had been enemies for months. There was no way they could ever be anything more than captor and captive. But the prophecy had been right about everything else. Could it be right about this too? Zara spent the rest of the night thinking about her conversations with Jake. She remembered how comfortable she felt talking to him. She thought about how much she looked forward to their meetings. She realized that she had been learning his language not because she had to, but because she wanted to understand him better. The next morning, Zara entered Jake's cell with new eyes. She saw him not as a prisoner but as a person. She noticed how he smiled when she appeared. She saw how his eyes lit up when they talked about subjects that interested him. She realized that he had been treating her as a friend, not as an enemy. "Commander," Jake said as she sat down across from him. "You look troubled today. Is something wrong?" Zara almost laughed. Here was her prisoner asking if she was feeling well. Any other captive would have been hoping for her to be upset or distracted. But Jake Morrison seemed genuinely concerned about her welfare. This was exactly the kind of person the prophecy had described. "I have been reading about my people's history," Zara said carefully. "Did you know that Catalians visited Earth long ago?" Jake's expression changed. He became more serious and alert. "Yes," he said slowly. "There are stories about it in our oldest records. Why do you ask?" "Because I think those stories might be more important than either of us realized," Zara said. "I think they might explain why our meeting was not just chance." Jake studied her face. He could see that she was trying to tell him something important. "What did you find in your records?" Zara took a deep breath. "I found a prophecy. It talks about two warriors who are destined to work together, one Catalian and one human. I think that prophecy is about us." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, but it was a different smile than usual. It was softer and more thoughtful. "I have heard similar stories from my people," he said. "Old tales about a warrior woman from the stars who would come to Earth. The stories say she would be our greatest enemy and our greatest ally." "Do you believe in destiny?" Zara asked. "I believe in choice," Jake replied. "But I also believe that some choices are more important than others. Meeting you has changed the way I think about your people." Maybe that was supposed to happen. Zara felt something shift inside her chest. The prophecy had said that everything would change when she realized that the human warrior was destined to be her husband. She had thought those words were just poetry. But looking at Jake Morrison now, she understood that they were literally true. Everything was shifting. Her view of the war, her understanding of her people's history, and most importantly, her feelings about the man sitting across from her. She was falling in love with her prisoner, and according to an ancient prophecy, that was exactly what was supposed to happen. The weeks that followed Zara's discovery of the prophecy changed everything aboard her ship. She found herself spending hours each day talking with Jake Morrison. What had started as interrogation sessions became deep conversations about life, war, philosophy, and dreams. Zara learned that Jake was not just a military commander but also a scholar who had studied history and science. He spoke about human art and music with the same passion. He showed for battle tactics. Jake told her stories about Earth that made her see his planet in a completely different way. He described cities full of people from different cultures working together. He talked about humans who spent their lives helping others, creating beauty or solving problems that would benefit everyone. The picture he painted was nothing like the primitive savages her empire had described. "Your people sound almost too good to be true," Zara said one day. "Every species has darkness in it. What do humans do when they are angry or afraid?" "Jake," was quiet for a moment. We make mistakes, he admitted. Sometimes terrible ones. We have fought wars among ourselves. We have done things we are ashamed of. But we try to learn from our errors. We try to become better than we were. This honesty impressed Zara more than any boasting could have. Jake did not pretend his people were perfect. He acknowledged their flaws while still believing in their potential for good. It was a kind of wisdom that Zara had rarely seen in her own culture, but their growing friendship was becoming dangerous. Other officers on Zara's ship were starting to notice how much time she spent with the prisoner. They whispered among themselves about their commander's strange behavior. Some began to question whether she was still loyal to the Empire. The situation became critical when General Voss arrived on Zara's ship. He was one of the highest-ranking officers in the Catalian military and Zara's direct superior. He had come to personally oversee the interrogation of Jake Morrison and to prepare for the next attack on Earth. General Voss was everything that Zara was beginning to dislike about her own people. He was cruel and arrogant. He saw other species as inferior beings who existed only to serve the Empire. He had no interest in understanding humans or any other alien race. To him, they were simply obstacles to be removed or tools to be used. Commander. Zara, General Voss said when he arrived on the bridge, I am disappointed by your progress with the human prisoner. You have had him for weeks and learned nothing useful about their military capabilities. Zara felt her stomach tighten. The prisoner has been cooperative, she said carefully. I have learned much about human culture and psychology. Culture? General Voss laughed harshly. What use is their culture? We need to know about their weapons and defenses. We need information that will help us conquer their world. Perhaps. Conquest is not the right approach, Zara said. The words were out of her mouth before she could stop them. The humans are more advanced than our report suggested. They might be valuable as allies rather than slaves. The bridge became silent. Every officer turned to stare at Zara, suggesting alliance with an enemy species was close to treason. General Voss's face darkened with anger. You will report to my quarters immediately, he said in a voice that could freeze metal. We need to discuss your loyalties. The meeting with General Voss was brutal. He accused Zara of being corrupted by too much contact with the human prisoner. He suggested that Jake Morrison had somehow influenced her mind or emotions. He questioned whether she was still fit to command a Catalian warship. The prisoner will be transferred to a more secure facility, General Voss declared. Specialists will extract the information we need using more direct methods. Zara knew what that meant. Jake would be tortured until he broke or died. The thought filled her with rage and fear. General, I protest. The prisoner is cooperating. Torture will only make him less willing to share information. Your objection is noted and overruled, General Voss said coldly. You have become too personally involved with this human. It has clouded your judgment. That night, Zara lay awake in her quarters thinking about what General Voss had said. Was she too personally involved with Jake Morrison? The answer was obvious. She cared about him in ways that went far beyond professional duty. The prophecy had spoken of a bond between the two destined warriors, and she could feel that bond growing stronger every day, but caring about Jake did not cloud her judgment. If anything, getting to know him had opened her eyes to truths about the empire that she had never wanted to see. The Catalian way of life was built on conquest and oppression. They destroyed other cultures without trying to understand them. They took slaves and called it civilization. The next morning, Zara made a decision that would change her life forever. She could not let Jake be tortured and killed. She would help him escape, even if it meant destroying her own career and possibly her life. The plan had to be simple and quick. General Voss would transfer Jake to the torture facility within hours. Zara had to act before then. She used her command codes to access the ship's security systems. She disabled the cameras watching Jake's cell and created false reports that would hide her movements. When she entered Jake's cell, he immediately knew something was wrong. What has happened? He asked. My superior has arrived, Zara said quickly. "He wants to torture you for information." "I cannot allow that to happen," Jake studied her face. "Helping me escape will make you a traitor to your own people?" "Yes," Zara said simply. "It will. Why would you do that for me?" Zara met his eyes. "Because I believe the prophecy is true. Because I think you and I are meant to work together, not as enemies. Because everything I have learned about your people tells me that this war is wrong." Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. "If we do this, there will be no going back. You will be hunted by your own empire. You will be called a traitor and a criminal." "I know," Zara said. "But staying silent while innocent people suffer would make me something worse than a traitor. It would make me a coward." They moved quickly through the ship's corridors. Zara's command codes got them past most security checkpoints, but they still had to avoid patrols and cameras. Jake proved to be as skilled at stealth as he was at combat. He moved silently and followed Zara's lead without question. The most dangerous moment came when they reached the shuttle bay. General Voss's guards were everywhere, and they had orders to shoot any unauthorized personnel. Zara and Jake had to hide behind cargo containers and wait for the right moment to reach an escape pod. But their luck ran out just as they reached the pod. Alarms began to ring throughout the ship. Someone had discovered Jake's empty cell. Within minutes, the entire ship would be searching for them. "Go," Zara said, pushing Jake toward the escape pod. "Get back to Earth. Warn your people about the next attack. Not without you," Jake said firmly. "We do this together or not at all." Before Zara could argue, the shuttle bay doors opened and soldiers poured in. General Voss was leading them personally. His face showed the cold fury of a man who had been betrayed by someone he trusted. "Commander Zara," he called out, "step away from the human and surrender. You can still avoid the worst consequences if you cooperate now." Zara looked at Jake, then back at General Voss. The prophecy had said that everything would shift when she realized the human warrior was destined to be her husband. Standing there in the shuttle bay, facing the choice between her old life and an unknown future, Zara finally understood what those words meant. Everything was shifting right now. Her loyalty to the Empire was breaking apart. Her feelings for Jake were becoming impossible to deny. Her understanding of right and wrong was being rewritten. The woman who had entered that shuttle bay was not the same person who would leave. "I choose him," she said, her voice carrying across the shuttle bay. "I choose Jake Morrison and everything he represents. I choose love over conquest. I choose hope over hate." General Voss raised his weapon. "Then you choose death." The battle that followed would be remembered by both species as the moment when everything changed. Zara and Jake fought side by side against impossible odds. They moved together as if they had been partners for years. They protected each other with a fierce devotion that impressed even their enemies, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The escape pod was damaged in the fighting. Their weapons were running out of ammunition. It seemed like their rebellion would end before it truly began. Then something unexpected happened. Some of Zara's own officers joined the fight on her side. Young Catalians who had also been questioning the Empire's methods chose to follow their commander rather than their general. The battle in the shuttle bay became a symbol of the larger conflict brewing within Catalian society. By the time the shooting stopped, Zara and Jake were aboard the damaged escape pod, racing toward Earth with half the Catalian fleet chasing them. But they were alive and they were together. The prophecy was coming true exactly as the ancient words had predicted. The escape pod shook violently as Catalian weapons fired at it from all directions. Zara worked frantically at the controls while Jake tried to repair the damaged communication system. They were still hours away from Earth, and the pursuing fleet was gaining on them. The small pod was never designed for this kind of chase. Its engines were overheating and its shields were failing. "Can you reach your people?" Zara asked as another blast rocked the pod. "Almost," Jake said, his hands moving quickly over the human equipment he had jury-rigged to work with Catalian technology. "There, I have a signal." The voice that came through the speakers was tense and worried. "Captain Morrison, this is Earth. Defense Command, we thought you were dead. What is your status? I am alive but in danger, Jake said quickly. I am with Commander Zara Vex of the Catalian fleet. She helped me escape, but now both our peoples want us dead. We need immediate assistance. There was a long pause. Captain, did you say you are with a Catalian commander? Are you being forced to say this? No, Jake said firmly. Commander Zara chose to help me. She has turned against her own empire. But that is not the most important thing right now. I have urgent information about a threat that will destroy both our species if we do not work together. Before Earth Command could respond, new alarms filled the escape pod. Jake's instruments were detecting something impossible. Ships were approaching from outside the solar system. But these were not Catalian vessels. They were something else entirely. Something much worse. Zara, Jake said, his voice filled with fear. Look at these readings. What are those ships? Zara studied the data and felt her blood turn to ice. The ships were massive, larger than anything the Catalian Empire had ever built. Their energy signatures were unlike any technology she knew. But most frightening of all, there were thousands of them. An entire fleet was entering the solar system. The prophecy, Zara whispered. It spoke of a darkness from beyond the galaxy. I think it just arrived. The communication system crackled with panicked voices from both Earth and the Catalian fleet. The new ships were not responding to any attempts at contact. They were simply moving toward the inner planets with obvious hostile intent. Both human and Catalian forces were scrambling to respond to this unexpected threat. Jake managed to patch into the military communications of both species. What they heard confirmed their worst fears. The alien ships were attacking everything in their path. They destroyed Catalian vessels and human stations with equal efficiency. They showed no interest in communication or surrender. They were here to eliminate all life in the system. This is exactly what the ancient prophecy warned about, Zara said. The darkness from beyond the galaxy that would try to destroy everything. Then we need to do what the prophecy said, Jake replied. We need to unite our peoples against this threat. But uniting two species that had been at war seemed impossible. The humans did not trust Zara, and the Catalians considered her a traitor. Both sides were more interested in fighting each other than working together against the new enemy. The situation changed when the alien fleet reached Earth's outer defenses. The space stations that protected the human homeworld were destroyed in minutes. The alien weapons were beyond anything either species had seen before. They turned matter into energy with frightening efficiency. Entire ships simply ceased to exist when hit by the alien beams. General Voss, commanding the Catalian fleet, tried to attack the aliens while they were busy destroying human defenses. His plan was to let the two enemy forces weaken each other, then claim victory over whoever survived. But the alien ships turned on the Catalian fleet and destroyed half of it in the first exchange. General Voss himself was killed when his flagship was vaporized, with their leaders dead or scattered. Both fleets were in chaos. The aliens pressed their advantage, moving toward Earth itself. It seemed like nothing could stop them from destroying both species completely. That was when Jake Morrison did something that changed everything. He broadcast a message on all frequencies, reaching every human and Catalian ship in the system. This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth Defense Command. His voice rang out across space. I am speaking to all ships, human and Catalian alike. We are facing an enemy that wants to destroy us all. Our war with each other means nothing if we are all dead. I'm calling for an immediate alliance between our species. Commander Zara Vex of the Catalian fleet has shown that cooperation is possible. We must follow her example or watch our civilizations burn. The response was immediate and mixed. Some human ships moved to form up with the surviving Catalian vessels. Others refused to trust their former enemies. The Catalian reaction was even more divided. Young officers who had been questioning the Empire's methods joined the alliance. Older commanders called Jake's proposal impossible and continued fighting both the aliens and the humans, but enough ships from both sides answered Jake's call to form a combined fleet. Zara and Jake worked together to coordinate the defense. using their knowledge of both species' tactics and technology. The humans provided speed and adaptability. The Catalians contributed firepower and discipline. Together, they began to slow the alien advance. The real breakthrough came when human engineers and Catalian scientists started sharing information. The humans had developed new shield technologies that could partially deflect the alien weapons. The Catalians had sensors that could track the alien ships even when they tried to hide. By combining their knowledge, they created new weapons and defenses that neither species could have developed alone. Zara found herself commanding a mixed fleet of human and Catalian ships. It should have been impossible, but somehow it worked. The crews learned to trust each other through shared danger. They began to see their former enemies as allies and friends. The barriers between the species started to crumble under the pressure of survival. The final battle took place near Earth's moon. The alien fleet had regrouped and was making one last push toward the human homeworld. The combined human-Catalian force was outnumbered 3-1. But they had something the aliens did not expect. They had unity born of necessity and hope. Jake Morrison piloted a new ship built with both human and Catalian technology. Zara stood beside him on the bridge, commanding the fleet while he handled the tactical flying. They moved together as if they had been partners for years. Their ship danced through the battle, leading charges and protecting damaged allies. The turning point came when Zara made the ultimate sacrifice. The alien command ship was too heavily defended for normal weapons to penetrate. But Zara realized that her flagship still had one weapon the aliens had not accounted for. She could ram the alien vessel with her ship's engine set to overload. The explosion would destroy both ships but might cripple the alien fleet. "No," Jake said when she explained her plan. "We find another way. The prophecy said we were meant to be together." "The prophecy said we were meant to save the galaxy," Zara replied. "Sometimes salvation requires sacrifice." But Jake had a different idea. Instead of one ship sacrificing itself, he organized a coordinated attack by the entire combined fleet. Every human and Catalian vessel focused their fire on the alien command ship at exactly the same moment. The concentrated assault overwhelmed the alien defenses and destroyed their flagship, with their command ship gone. The alien fleet lost coordination. The surviving ships retreated beyond the galaxy, defeated but not destroyed. The immediate threat was over, but everyone knew they would return someday. In the aftermath of the battle, Jake and Zara stood together on the bridge of their ship. Around them, human and Catalian crews worked side by side to repair damage and care for the wounded. The war between their species was over. A new alliance had been born from the ashes of their conflict. "The prophecy was right," Zara said, taking Jake's hand. "Everything did shift when I realized you were destined to be my husband." Jake smiled and pulled her close. "So when do we make it official?" "As soon as we figure out how to plan a wedding that both our species can attend," Zara laughed. Their love had started as destiny written in ancient words, but it had become something real and powerful through their choices and actions. They had chosen to trust each other when trust seemed impossible. They had chosen love over hate, cooperation over conquest, hope over fear. The galaxy was still dangerous. The alien threat would return. There would be challenges ahead that would test the new alliance between humans and Catalians. But Jake Morrison and Zara Vex would face those challenges together, as partners in war and peace, as husband and wife, as the living proof that even the most unlikely love could change the fate of worlds.